Most of us will never have thought of ourselves as a leader. Not so long ago, the idea of us taking charge of an office would have seemed absurd to us. That's a job for the high flyers, for people. That's a job for someone born to the role. But despite any initial apprehension, leadership roles are something that many of us will have thrust upon us against any protestations. In the vast majority of industries, progress and a hike in salary means that you must take on more responsibility. And that responsibility will very often take the form of some kind of leadership. You can only progress so far before you start having staff under you. And the further you climb the ladder, the more people will start looking to you for direction, and the more people you will be responsible for. So when the opportunity presents itself, you have two choices. You can either shy away and carry on your normal life in a safe way, or you can accept the challenge and become a leader. If you do accept the mantle of leadership, you will find that much more than your work situation will change. You'll become more authoritative, more self-assured. You'll find that your own self-image will improve vastly. So now the big question is, can you learn leadership? Is it a role just for those born to it, a natural leader that stands out amongst men? The good news is that you certainly can learn leadership skills, and that's what this course is all about. In this course, you will learn the ins and outs of leadership, what it takes to inspire a team and to get the very best out of them. Should you be feared or liked? How to become instantly more charismatic. How to use ancient techniques like transformismo to control your team. How to understand the differences of your team and get them to work for you. How to handle a crisis. How to cultivate inspiration. How to give your staff motivation, and how to create new teams, and much more. And once you've honed these skills to perfection, you'll find that you'll become much more than a leader in the office. You'll likely become a better parent, a better friend, and a better partner. Enroll now, and I'll see you inside. Perhaps the best place to start when asking the question of what makes a good leader is to ask ourselves, what is the end goal here? What do we aspire to? What would a leader aspire to? When we think of great leaders, we will often think of inspiring superhero types. People with heroic puffed out chests, powerful voices, and that cool air of confidence. They always know the right thing to do, and they have this uncanny ability to reel off motivational speeches at the drop of a hat. No one ever defies these great leaders because they just don't want to. The leaders are so just and wise that there's no need. But if anyone did cross them, they would be immediately put to rights with a stern but a fair judgment. These are the leaders that make us feel safe, that steer our ships through uncharted waters and make us feel like we can do anything as a team. But these heroes are stereotypes, straight out of Saturday morning cartoons that you watched as a child. The chances are that you do know a few people like this, from your past or from your childhood. Maybe a parent fulfilled this role, or a teacher that put you on the straight path through life, that motivated to do your very best. Maybe you know of celebrities or famous people, historical leaders that you aspire to, that motivate you to do your best. But for the most part, this is not the reality of what makes a good leader. Of course, these traits can help you to keep followers, help people to trust you, and to build a team. But they are not necessary for you to become a really great leader. And it's just as well. If we try to fulfill all the traits that we perceive in great leaders, it would be an enormous pressure on us. So what does make a good leader? What are the minimum requirements? Ultimately, the best leader is the leader who gets results. They do this by organizing, stabilizing, and motivating a team. They do this to get more out of them than they would be able to accomplish on their own. It's called synergy. So to put it simply, does having this leader in place make a big difference to the team's ability to accomplish goals? If the answer is yes, then it's very worthwhile having this leader in place. The leader ensures and encourages and indeed creates a synergy within the team. Synergy means that the output of the team as a whole is much more than each of the individual members added together. If the answer is no, then it's best not to have that particular leader in place. They're not fulfilling the goals of reaching the team's goals. However, this is also a dangerous approach. An approach based on the leader's performance leads to all manner of testing that is not really in the interests of the team or the organization. For example, a leader might be punished or penalized if they fail to meet monthly targets, or if they seem to be spending too much money. This seems to make sense when you think about leaders in terms of their ability to help teams meet their goals. But this is forgetting one small factor, the factor of time. Because a leader's ability should not be measured in terms of their ability to accomplish X in T amount of time. If that is the only concern and the only aspect of performance that the leader is graded on, then in all likelihood they will end up making the wrong decisions for the good of the organization and the good of the team. This is very common. This kind of leader will stick with what works. They will stick with what they know. They will avoid taking risks or evolving the business model or the organizational model for the team, and to make and meet new challenges. A good leader should see the road ahead and preempt challenges, working out strategies how to overcome them before they actually happen. In this way, the organization and the team will flourish instead of failing. The same theory applies in other situations as well, in other social situations. For example, in a family, the team leader or the parents strive to keep the family together, to keep them happy, but also to try and improve their well-being. The supermum and the superdad are able to look ahead and provide contingencies in case of crises, in this way maintaining the stability of the family. So we can conclude that a good leader helps the team achieve the goals more effectively than they would if he or she were not there. That was a rather abstract view of leadership, and it doesn't really give us anything practical, anything concrete to work with and strive towards. So let's look at some of these practical traits that a good leader needs right now. Good leaders believe in what they're doing. Perhaps one of the most important things for a good leader is that they believe in what they're doing. That's to say that good leaders should have a real passion for what they're doing and really believe in it. This is important because it will help them to make the best decisions for the long term of the organization, and also because it helps to inspire others. Good leaders see the big picture. A leader needs to be able to step back and see the bigger picture. They need to understand where the team is headed and what challenges will face them along the way. This is important because it will allow all the individual members of the team to focus on their smaller aspect. Good leaders have broad knowledge. A leader should be something of a jack of all trades. The reason for this is that it will give them the understanding to see how all the pieces fit together. And it will mean they're able to deal with issues as they arise across departments, even when that means taking more of a top-level approach rather than understanding all the detail. You'll also find that having some basic experience in each aspect of your business can help you to get more respect from the professionals in each aspect of your organization. Good leaders understand people. A good leader should be able to work with anyone. This means they need to be able to empathize with people and to understand what makes them tick, so that they can inspire them to take action. Good leaders are great communicators. This also means you need to be able to communicate as a leader. Not only is it your job to communicate the plan in a way that your team can fully understand, but it is also your job to communicate to your superiors and to your clientele. Good leaders think ahead. A leader shouldn't just be dealing with the day-to-day challenges of the organization, but should be thinking always one step ahead. You need to be constantly questioning what the next challenge will be and how to face it. And you need to be thinking about how to grow, improve, and scale your organization. Good leaders have contingency plans. Leaders need to have multiple contingencies and backup plans. Think of the worst case scenarios and prepare for them. Good leaders lead by example. It is important that you lead by example in every case. This means that you need to take a do as I do approach, rather than making one rule for one person and another for yourself. It also means generally setting the tone. Teams look to their leaders as barometers to identify how serious any given situation is and to know how they should react. If you panic, then your team will panic. If you stay calm, then your team will stay calm too. A good leader needs to be courageous. If this sounds like a Saturday morning TV show again, then bear in mind that we're not talking about the kind of courage that gives you the strength to stand up to terrorists. Rather, we're talking about the courage to take risks and to break the mold. This is very important. Good leaders take responsibility. And once you have made that decision, whatever it is, it's critical that you stand by it and face the music, whatever happens. This means you need to accept responsibility when things go. This can seem unfair at times, but once again, it is actually a feature that is important for the welfare of the team. By accepting responsibility, you remove culpability from your team and give them the freedom to work without fear of repercussions. You're passionate about what you do, And this comes over in the way you walk, act and talk. But you need to get this over to your team so that they feel the same way. You can't expect all the members of your team to be as passionate as you are. After all, you're the leader. Some of them are there just to make money, do as little as possible, and to go home to the wife and kids. So how do you do this? How do you pass along your enthusiasm? One method of motivation is to use incentives. This could be money or other things to the advantage of the team member. However, incentives tend not to get the team working to their best advantage. In fact, some studies show that incentives can make a team less productive. This is best illustrated by something called the candle experiment, which is an experiment designed to test creativity. Specifically, it is designed to test the ability to overcome a cognitive bias called functional fixedness. Essentially, functional fixedness causes us to get stuck in one way of thinking, usually about a tool or a practical task. Here, we tend to fixate on one way of doing something, to the point where we can no longer think of any other solutions or any other context. For example, if someone gave you a hammer and asked you to open a window, perhaps you would smash the glass, because you're used to using the hammer to hit things. It's a secondary thought to try and use a hammer as a lever to pry the window open. It requires an extra level of creativity to see the hammer as a tool that could be used in a variety of ways. To test this ability, the candle experiment presents participants with a box of tacks and a candle, and then asks them to attach the candle to the wall so that it can burn. Most people will try to tack the candle to the wall, and it continually falls off. But the solution is, in fact, to fix the box to the wall with one of the tacks, and then to stand the candle inside it. This requires participants to think outside that box, and to think of the box as a part of the experiment and a resource. One way you can do this is by using the psychological experiment of breaking down all the items you have into their constituent parts and materials. You don't have a candle, you have a candle, wax and string, for example. A box of tacks is not just tacks, it's also a box of cardboard, and the tacks are made of metal. The interesting thing about this study is that if we offer an incentive so that the first person to find the solution gets a reward, performance goes down. This kind of makes sense because if we focus and are too motivated, we fail to step back and see all the possibilities. The other problem with incentives is that it tends to stop us working as a team. Let's take a look at the example of the military. In the military, one soldier would give up his life for his team members. He is rewarded for having this mentality, and the group or the team as a whole benefits. But in business, we're often encouraged to sacrifice others for our own betterment. If we're in sales, we would happily take sales from a partner. Rewarding individuals often gives them a good reason to step on someone else. So if you can't pay your staff to work harder, what can you do? You can give them ownership, autonomy, and understanding. In other words, let them take credit for what they do and put their name on it. Give them the freedom to do things their own way. Give them the understanding so they know why they are doing it. The first part is important. It gives the team a sense of pride in the work that they're doing. If they feel that they own the project, that they own the work, then completing the work to their satisfaction will be their own reward. Give someone a project and let them put their mark on it, and they can use this as a way to prove their skills. It's also something to add to their CV, and it's a challenge. For example, let someone create their own sections on your website with their name on it, and it becomes something they will be proud of, and they can show their friends and family, and they will work harder on it because it is theirs. And finally, you need to make sure your team understands the why of what you do. Once the team understands why and believes in what they do, then you can stop micromanaging and leave them to do the tasks that you gave them. The important thing is that the team member knows that you trust them to overcome the little problem and to reach the goal that you gave them. But remember, the leader must always be responsible for his team members' decisions and stick with them and protect them. This is the mark of a good leader. It's up to them, and team members can do their best work when they own the goal and they can work out exactly how to reach that goal. It gives them confidence and also stops you from micromanaging. But remember, you always are responsible for their decisions. This gives them the confidence to make the decisions without a fear that they may be punished from above. You will benefit greatly from good communication, whether it's in the form of a motivational speech or just to give really clear instructions so your team knows exactly what to do. Communication is very important when dealing with your team. If tasks are not clearly defined, if people start to work on the wrong task or in a task in the wrong way, not really understanding why it needs to be done, then mistakes will be made. Charisma and charm is also very important for getting your vision over to your people. It's important that your team realizes why you are doing what you are doing and why it matters. So how do you do this? Vision and passion are important here, because it's the way you deliver your message that shows people that you really believe in what you're saying and what you're doing. As soon as you really believe in what you're saying, it will come across in the way that you do everything. It will show in your expression. It will show in the content of what you are saying. It will show in your gestures and the way that you move about in front of people. These gestures are important too. This is the way that you move your hands and your body as you speak. And when you do it correctly, it can make a massive difference to how charming and convincing you seem. The most charismatic people in the world all get this right. When you can move your hands around and use big body language, you take up more space, which makes people more interested and more engaged with what you're saying. You also demonstrate more conviction and congruence. This is the opposite of coming across like a shrinking wallflower who is perhaps embarrassed or shy about what they're saying. A good thing you can do to show confidence is to slow down. Simply slow down. This gives a feeling of confidence to the audience. Remember, your team, which is your audience, will panic if you panic. If you're slow, methodical, and calm, then your team will react in the same way. Slowing down immediately makes you come across as more confident. There are other benefits as well. If you slow down, then any instructions or directions that you give will be more easily understood and followed, particularly if your audience or your team are taking notes. Slowing down helps you to think about the next statement before you make it. It tends to make your voice a little bit lower, and actually you sound a little more intelligent. There's something else quite subtle that's going on here too. And this is that speaking too quickly can make you appear like you're trying to get everything out as quickly as possible, because you're not really sure if people want to listen to you. If you speak very fast, it may seem as though you're trying to get it all out before you get cut off. This is especially evident when it comes to telling stories. Someone very confident who is a natural storyteller will start by gradually setting the scene and creating a context for the story. They will pause for dramatic effect, and they will build up to the big reveals and the punchlines. Think back to the people who have held court at parties you've been to. They all will have used this to good effect. Or instead, try watching the videos of YouTuber Elliot Hulse. He will often start with some kind of question or statement and then leave a deliberate pause, at the same time gazing at the camera before following the statement up. This is powerful stuff. Once you try this technique, you'll find that leaving a silence at the end of a statement and taking your time is quite nerve-wracking. It takes a bit of skill, but when you do get it right, it really works. Effective communication is a thing that people get wrong, both in a work situation and in their personal life. So how could we define it? What is effective communication? Effective communication happens when we deliver a message to someone, precisely with the correct meaning, efficiently. Your objective in communicating is to convey the exact meaning in the minimum time. This has the dual effect of keeping meeting time to a minimum and also ensuring that people don't have to keep coming back and asking what the message was or what the instructions were. This is why it's a big mistake to use too many big words or too much jargon. Often people try to do this and sound clever, when in reality it just makes them sound insecure, as though they have something to prove. What's more, it makes it much harder for some people to understand, and it wastes people's time in reading. So why not just use the fewest words possible and avoid those dramatic pauses entirely? If the only fame is efficiency, then we could just talk like robots. And this is where precision comes into the equation. Of course, we can minimize and simplify many words, but would these words give the precise meaning? For example, we could say that it's cold outside. It's a very general term. But if we said that it was freezing, which is a slightly more complex word, it gives a better idea of how cold it is. It is below the freezing point of water, you need to wrap up warm, and there's possibly a wind that goes along with it. So it's a much more complex term, and it's much more descriptive. It's precise. Another important tip to make sure that you are seen as effective and efficient and someone worth following is to dress the part of a leader. Now this may seem shallow, but it's a fact that people do tend to follow people that look the part. This simply means taking care of your appearance, the way you dress, your hair, even your physical fitness. These things are important. It shows that you care. A team wants to know that their leader cares. This all boils down to what is known as the law of attraction. If you look a certain way and act a certain way, then you will become the person that you are acting like. This is because you will change the way that you feel about yourself, you will change the way that other people see and perceive you, and how they respond to you. Now, some people watching will say that these attributes that I'm describing are really not them at all. They're not center stage people. They don't have a broad image. They don't gesture when they speak. They don't modulate their voice. This is not them at all. So what if I'm shy and a retiring person? You simply don't want to be in the limelight. You feel uncomfortable when introduced to new people. What can you do? One solution is to start practicing social confidence. You put yourself in scenarios that are quite stressful socially. You do this again and again. Don't shy away from social contact, but welcome it and look for it. Eventually, you'll find that you'll become desensitized. Each time will become less of an ordeal, and you'll start to feel comfortable with all eyes upon you. You can also combine this with CBT. Tell yourself it doesn't really matter what people think, as long as you are helping to achieve the goal you believe in. This is just one more reason why it matters to have passion and vision. A great way to face this social fear and to desensitize is to start taking stand-up comedy classes, and even try to stand up in front of a real audience and tell jokes. Once you use these strategies and start to desensitize to the social pressures that are really fictitious anyway, you'll start to enjoy yourself. You'll slow down, you'll be calmer, and you'll seem more confident to your audience and your team. They'll be more willing to listen to you and to follow you. If you were to stop this course right now, you would have a formidable set of tools to set you on the path to leadership. You can inspire and motivate a team and show them how to weather a crisis calmly so that the whole team and the organization wins. But there's a little bit more to leadership than this. For example, up to the moment we've considered that everybody is more or less on board with your vision, with your overall goal. Now, this may not be the case. You may have a dissident. You may have more than one dissident. So what do you do in these circumstances? It's quite common that some people really do not want to be there. So what happens when two or more people think it's just a bit of a joke? What happens when someone has a bad attitude and is just trying to create problems, not just for you, but for the whole team? This is when leaders are split into two groups. You have the one group that will plead with their staff and try to be liked. They may make it into a joke, try to be on the same page against the system, or to generally be chummy. Then you have the other kind of leader who will try and instill fear and tell the member of staff that they will be fired or sent to another department or otherwise punished if they don't mend their ways. Suffice to say that it's not good to be best mates with your staff. There needs to be some distance and some respect, some mutual respect. Likewise, taking a fully fear-based approach is also a mistake. This ultimately makes you an enemy, and it creates a stressful work environment for your team. It also prevents your team from attempting to be fully creative or expressing themselves because they'll be fearful of repercussions if they get things wrong. So we need to reframe the original question, is it better to be feared or liked? Neither. It's better to be respected. You need to be calm and in charge in such a way that people want you to like them. This will be A, because they respect you, and B, because they understand that you can help them, and that what you want is best for the whole team. If the team sees that you're trying to help the team, and that you're trying to help them to do the best they possibly can, then they will tend to respect you. If they see you as a leader that they look up to, then they will want you to respect them. One of the best ways to gain respect is to give respect, a mutual respect. And the same goes for being likable. If you help people and you really like people, then they will reciprocate and you will be liked. It's a two-way street. A good leader needs to be able to work with colleagues from all walks of life and should value what each of them brings to the team equally. In fact, more diverse voices will mean a more diverse set of opinions and views, and so a more diverse skill set. You can occasionally make jokes at your own expense, laugh at yourself a little bit, join in the fun, and even allow others to point fun at you. This shows strength and confidence. The key is to make sure you don't allow this to cross the line, and that you don't tolerate staff trying to push their luck by taking a joke too far, just to see how far you will go. You shouldn't allow them to test their own limits too far, just to see how far they will go for their own amusement and the amusement of the team. The overall effect will set a precedent and will not be good for team efficiency. And of course you can't physically punish someone or stop them behaving in a certain way. If you can't reason with them, and if you can't gain their respect by giving them respect, then what can you do? What do you do when you have a dissident that will not follow the rules and will not listen to you? This brings us on to the next module.